Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today I want to talk about my sort of first impressions, my first experience of playing Mass Effect. Now, usually when I do this, I stream it, which I did in this case, and I streamed Mass Effect 1 for about 4.5 hours. Had kind of a lot of fun with it. And then off of stream, I probably played for another 4 hours or so up until this point. And, 8 hours in, possibly slightly more, it's probably a good time to talk about my sort of initial impressions of this game. Now, for the clarity that there is, I did play the Mass Effect 1 on the Legendary Edition. I know that this game has had some quality of life changes and graphical updates and all that good stuff. So I know that I'm getting a much better experience than like the original game. So let's talk about it, because when after I'd stopped streaming it, I was very high on the the game as a whole, and I very much thought it was just it's got its place in time, let's say. And also there are sequels. I know a lot of people like number 2, so I'm fully aware that there's a lot of stuff that probably gets improved on the later games, but I've putting more time into the game and playing it longer. I think that shine has started to wear off already. So let's go over all the things. Let's start with what I liked about this game and then sort of my dislikes for it, so you guys can understand where I'm at with it. So first off, obviously the story is a big part of this series. This is a very grand space opera type style. You, Commander Shepard, basically end up becoming this agent for the council of these different alien races, and your job is to go and find out what this rogue agent is basically up doing. And that means talking to people, that means finding out information, that means going in guns blazing. Basically the game tries to let you do it in a way that you see fit. Now, I always appreciate good dialogue options, to the point where some of the quests I've done have multiple outcomes. One, in fact, I did off on stream, was this scientist was like, "Hey, I need you to go and stop my friend from following me." Alright, cool, yeah, I'll go and talk to him. Jumps me, basically. And at the end of that conversation, I was like, I ain't gonna let you get away with this, thinking that he was going to, I don't know, shoot the character in the leg or, take him in to the police. No, Shepard just straight up fucking murders him in cold blood, which I wasn't expecting it. And that was kind of fun. That was very unique, and I like that. I like the fact that the game let me do that, which was cool. And you do have this kind of dark side, light side system going on. I haven't really figured out what that allows for yet, but I'm sure it does. It probably lets you get more points into your charm and whatever the other one is, in interrogation, essentially, which is kind of cool. So I did really appreciate the fact that the side quests that I've done so far have been interesting. A lot of discussion. It lets you kind of decide how you want to tackle it. You got the good answer, the neutral answer, and kind of a more forceful answer as well as bonus answers that you have from having those particular skills. The main set of cast as well seemed pretty cool. So you got yourself Shepard. Shepard is kind of an interesting character. He's probably not that interesting as a character, really, because he's just there for the player to pick how you want him to be, whether you want him to be an angry dude, a violent dude, a good guy, all that stuff. But the people around him so far, now I have every party member in the game except for, I think it's Liara, I don't know how you pronounce the name correctly, the blue alien. I haven't quite got there yet, but I have all the other members. And so far, there's none of them that I'm like, oh my god, these guys are awful. I'm still learning about them, learning about what they are, what their lives are like. It's really interesting as you are a human interacting with aliens and people being kind of shitty towards you, and you also have human buddies on the ship as well as alien buddies. For example, you have Caden and Williams, who are the human female and male, and they are there to basically try and ground you as a human before anything else, and they have their own thoughts and feelings on stuff. And then when you meet the Krogan, Rex, and when you meet Garrus, and you basically, they have their own different kind of how they are. They have their similar kind of vibes to what humans can be, different particular emotions and stuff. And it's really interesting because you essentially get to slowly uncover what these characters are like, what their personalities are like, what they agree with, what they disagree with. I had a choice earlier on when I was playing where one of them was like, no, you should definitely kill this this bug, and the other one was like, no, you shouldn't, like, you know, sentence it to death. And I was like, that's a really interesting choice. They have very different feelings on what they want there out of it, and that obviously leads to other dialogue options. So the characters that your main roster, like with your team, as well as like your choices you make and how you interact, very, very well put together. There are obviously good supporting characters as well, like there's the humans that you meet along the way, like you got the ambassador, you've got the admiral. You meet a lot of interesting people, and it's kind of fun seeing how those dialogue options go and how you can just call people out on stuff or, you know, agree with them. So that part of the game, that seems to be like really what I can see why people really enjoy. That is like the main focus. It reminds me of Deus Ex Human Revolution. That has a lot of focus on dialogue as well, and that's similar time frame. We're talking like late 2010s, I think. I mean, I think Mass Effect originally was 2007, and I have a feeling Human Revolution was 2010, but that's just a guess. It might have been later than that. But yeah, it all comes together quite nicely, having those, you know, that character interaction. That's really, really cool. Moving from like the story beats to like the gunplay and combat. Gunplay is pretty decent in this game. I like that you have to think about your weapons and overheating. Like, you can stay with one weapon, but sometimes you have to like let off. I mean, the game is very much a cover shooter, so it's like you fire some shots, let your gun reload, let them fire some shots. You know, tell your team to move about, whatnot, and fight them, and give your loadouts to your team as well, which obviously really helps. But you have your pistol, your shotgun, your laser rifle, and then your sniper. I really like the sniper rifle, but there's a lot of the options I've come across so far. The different upgrades and things like that seem pretty decent. I really like the fact that you have the gameplay for Shepard, but you also have the ability to set up your party members being like, I need you to be here, and then when you hit a button you can slow down and basically stop time and then give them commands like switch to this weapon, or if they've got different abilities, you're like, use that ability. And that's really fun, and that obviously can affect the loadout that you take. If you're fighting potentially the Geth, which are all robots, you might want one of your characters that has better damage or better abilities to deal with robots, whereas someone else might be better at dealing with organic life forms and things like that. So it's there's actually quite a lot of granular you can go in there. Not like super granular, but like getting certain weapon mods and certain weapon loadouts for certain characters that have specific skills can really help make a fight easier and harder. I've, you know, gone on and done some side quests that might be a little bit later in the game, past this point of where I am at the story, unlock some pretty nice guns or armor, and now I'm like, haha, I can steamroll a lot of stuff, which is kind of fun. Like, I love when games do that. They're like, here you go, here's your options. Because for the longest time in this game I was like, I don't know how to make a lot of money, but now I have a lot of money and I can sell a lot of stuff after, you know, sorting my team out and being like, right, cool, let's keep upgrading everything. But yeah, the combination of buying new weapons and trying out new weapons, either on your teammates or yourself, the squad-based mechanics, which is kind of like you can only really tell them to go somewhere, attacking a target, or come back on you. But that alone can be very useful. And then obviously the different upgrades and stuff that you can give them. It's kind of fun. Being like, right, I need you to focus on assault rifles, I need you to focus on shotguns, and then what they get from those. I mean, ultimately you'd like to have max out all their skills, because all the skills they get are pretty great. But overall, nothing too crazy with it. It's your standard cover-based shooter affair, but it works pretty well. And the fact that you can issue commands and tell it and get skills for your teammates that you can activate as well as yourself, I think is really awesome. Works really well, and honestly, combat's one of my favourite things in the entire game. I really like how it plays out, and I think it works well. So what else then? So what have we got? So we've talked about player choices, we've talked about combat. One thing I quite like is driving the vehicle as well. There's a little vehicle called the Mako that you can drive around on planet surfaces like moons and asteroids and stuff. Doesn't handle like the best, but it handles well enough to the point where it's pretty fun, and it's pretty good at destroying stuff as well. So those sections of the game I kind of like. You get to go and explore like a planet. There's usually hidden stuff everywhere. There's a lot of this game that's, you know, is there in the sense of like, hey, you can go and explore this. You can go and there's like side quests and whatnot that you'd expect from this kind of RPG. This is probably the first BioWare game that I've played, and quite frankly, like it's pretty good. But there are some things in this game that come from this game's age, and while it didn't bother me too much while I was streaming it, I have since played more of the game, and it's starting to grate a tiny bit to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do all the side missions. So some of the side missions of this, you land on like a moon or a planet or something, and you have to go around that planet. They are probably, as much as they are fun to drive around with the vehicle, they are a little bit big for not a lot. And they can feel very chorey because a lot of the environments, a lot of the buildings you go into are identical. So I did one where I'm on a planet I'm on an asteroid trying to stop it. Each room that you go to at the different bases all look the same. Then I went to the moon, the Earth's moon, to do a quest, and pretty much all of those rooms look the same. And I realised quite quickly it was like, I see why you do the side quests, you know, the XP, the money, all the good stuff you want, but they can get repetitive quite quickly. So what I was basically doing was doing maybe one, maybe two, and then going and doing a story mission, and then doing a story mission, and then coming back, because there's not a lot of reason to do a ton of the side quests. I'm at a point where I have so much gear and a lot of money where I can probably buy a lot of the mods and stuff that I want. It kind of makes it feel a little bit pointless. It's the repetitive nature of them and how the fact everything looks the same, which is my biggest issue. One thing that this is very much of its time, but one thing that drives me up the wall with this game is the lack of sprinting. You can sprint for about 5 seconds before Shepard runs out of breath, and you don't get around on foot very quickly. In the first sort of tutorial area, which is the Citadel, you have to do a lot of running back and forth. There is the fast travel system, which is great, but you will spend a lot of time running back and forth, and it's not fun. After a while, playing the game to the point where I'm like almost 10 hours in, or wherever I am at with it, I am sick of Shepard not running fast, you know, not running particularly far on a minimum amount of sprint. I don't know why games decided to do that back in the day, but there we go. I think you should be able to sprint for a good 20 seconds before it runs out, if I'm honest. And that, you might be able to upgrade that later, I don't know. But Jesus Christ, it's annoying. I really wish it wasn't the case, but it is bloody annoying because it takes forever to get anywhere on foot, unfortunately. One other thing is the dialogue options. So you might be presented with 3 different dialogue options on screen that say one thing, but the one that you pick is not really what you expected to come out of Shepard's mouth. And this, I think, was a big problem with the game originally. I don't know what the second and the third games are like, but here it's really annoying. You ask a question or you do something, and then it'll just give a completely different take on what was written, and it happens more often than not. And it's just like, well, I didn't really expect it to come out in that style. I didn't expect him to say this. That really wasn't the question that I was trying to get out of him. And it is a problem, and it means that sometimes picking dialogue choices, I'm like, I'm not sure how they're going to come across. I had one earlier, it was cool, that there was a bottom answer, and it was like, damn bastards or something like that. And what he said he didn't even swear. So it was like, why bother writing this if you're not going to use what you've written here? It's a minor thing, but it is kind of weird and kind of annoying. Makes picking choices a little bit more difficult. And I guess the last thing that I'm not overly keen on, obviously I know that this was a big problem with the original game, is that they use a lot of lifts to hide the loading. And obviously it's, this is on an SSD. My computer can handle this game pretty well, and there's still a lot of long lifts. You can skip some of it when they're doing like dialogue and things like that in the lift, but yeah, there's a lot of lifts, and I get it, it changes the environment and whatnot, but you would think that they would speed that process up. But yeah, for the most part, I'm actually enjoying this game for what it is. I don't know if I'm going to play like massive bursts of it. Like I'll probably play a couple hours here, a couple hours there, just do a few side quests or do a main mission, because it's very obvious to me how this game is going to play out and how a lot of stuff is going to be very samey, unfortunately. And that's okay, like, as long as the gameplay loop stays fun, like, you know, getting better weapons, upgrading the characters. I do like the upgrade system, so I should mention that. I do like that. I think that's fun. But, you know, I get it. A lot of people are playing it for the story more than anything else. And so far the story is good. Hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully it keeps me interested. But I also am aware that the sequels exist, and I know that the sequels improve on certain aspects of this game. So, you know, these things that I'm not so much of a fan of might only be limited to the first game, because those were the feedback, complaints at the time that was then changed in the sequel. So, but all in all, Mass Effect seems like a pretty good start. You know, I will probably see it to the end because I'm kind of curious about the story. Hopefully, you know, I get to a point where I can just, if nothing else, I will just push on and play it and see what else the game has to offer as well. There's a lot of things that, like, you know, like mini games for like hacking, which is pretty fun, and like other little bits and bobs in the game that are all good, but these are the main points that I think really matter, trying to get these across, both the good and the bad of it. For anyone else who's out there who might be thinking about playing it, obviously if you want to have a look, watch my 4-hour stream. That's pretty much the entirety of the starting area plus a little bit out into space, but you'll get a good feel of whether this is the sort of game you would play. And also be aware it's just a game of its age. It is going to be like what I discussed, like the sprinting and things like that, that are very much of its time, that probably wouldn't be in a modern version now, or at least with, you know, be a lot more effective. But all in all, it's a good game. I'm liking what I'm playing. I will probably keep playing it and see where we end up. But anyway, that'll do it for me today then, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, then hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. Until next video, I will see you then.